Hello YouTube and welcome back to the zone, ladies and gentlemen. I've literally just finished a beautiful lunch, and guess what I have for after this expedition, ladies and gentlemen, for dessert? Cherries. Which came from Spanish cherries, I should say. And I gotta tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, just a little side note, I've not been able to get my hand on cherries for nearly 3 months. I am absolutely going to enjoy every single moment of having those cherries after this. So, let's just get started with another Chris Chan article. Chris and manipulation. This article or section is still yet to be completed due to stress. We get a lot of stressful torture in our lives that make us crash into slumber. Given that inspiration is a big variable, and we may have been lacking of it, this article or section will be completed as soon as possible at our own pace. Honest. Oh dear. And this is a quote from the man in the pickle suit on how trolls manipulated Chris into performing in many of his rage videos. For every trolling saga, there was a bunch of stuff happening in the background. Chris's reactions on YouTube were highly inflated by troll girlfriends whispering shit to him behind the scenes. "Oh, Chris, you're not just going to take that, are you? Chris, I need a man who can stand up for himself, not just a little wuss. It takes quite a bit to whip Chris up into a frenzy, and it's hard to keep it going." Chris' experience with the trolls in a nutshell. Chris just lying sideways for the world to see. Yeah. Manipulation is a psychological tactic aimed at taking advantage of someone in order to... One second. Right, anyway, where were we? To perform a specific action. This has been a key technique used by Chris's trolls, his enablers, and his mother. Overview. It isn't particularly difficult to trick Chris into anything. Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, doing so proved to be as simple as 1, 2, 3. All any of his manipulators had to do was follow a simple 3-step procedure to convince him into doing anything they wanted him to do. 1. Bribery. Give Chris an offer for something he'd really want. Alternatively, feed into Chris's beliefs. 2. Instructions. Provide Chris with over-the-top steps he can take to the offer so that he can roleplay with you. And 3. Betrayal. Watch him do it and betray himself. Rinse, dry, and repeat. As an example, Chris's history of being manipulated began with him being tricked into crawling into a tight space by childhood friend Sarah Hammer. When she told him that she found Casper the Friendly Ghost there, Chris simply noticed that Chris had a fascination with cartoon characters being real, and knew this was the perfect opportunity to give Chris the offer of meeting him in person, bribery. She then told him that he could see Casper if he would crawl into the hole, instructions. Finally, she got to lock him in and began watching the events that would follow, betrayal. During the classic era, this technique would persist from its usage from many trolls such as Blanca Wise, Clyde Cash, Liquid Chris, and even a bunch of trolls posing as Nintendo staff. In the case of Blanca, the trolls behind the pseudonym simply realized that Chris really wanted a significant other to complete his quest to finally get some pussy, so they used Chris's desperate pleas to complete the mission to obtain his medallions, bribery. Afterwards, they insisted that Chris give them the medallion if he wanted Blanca for himself, instructions. Finally, they destroyed the medallion in many ways, from setting it on fire to submerging the broken pieces into a jar of pickles, betrayal. The most illegal and life-changing use of this technique is from Chris's infamous enablers. The idea guys, after a long string of supernatural beliefs and creepy behaviors being displayed from Chris during his comeback, a troll by the name of Joshua Wise noticed his complete lack of self-awareness and wanted to see how deep the rabbit hole would go. Wise would then appeal to many of his fantasies by role-playing as several of his characters. Bribery. Afterwards, he tasked him to do a number of nonsensical tasks, such as having him lick a drawing of Magi-chan's penis on a wall, and having him destroy a Christmas tree, telling them that it was Nazi merchandise. Instructions. The betrayal part of this would come from the proposed humiliation that Chris would subject himself to even after he was doxxed and shut down for a while. He, along with several others, would use this technique repeatedly until they went as far as extorting large sums of money from him and falsely reporting him to the CIA for being a pedophile, among other things. Betrayal. Behind the scenes of trolling. Trolling is the man in the pickle suit again. Trolling is necessary for Chris to be as funny as everyone expects him to be. People don't like to hear this, because they want to believe Chris is crazy. They want to believe that Chris is a crazy, free-ring circus of fun 24/7. But he's not. He's got his moments. But he's a phenomenon that needs to be curated if you want to experience the old-school trolling days. One of Chris's former trolls, the man in the pickle suit, has often posted on Kiwi Farms on how trolls manipulated Chris behind the scenes. Hundreds of hours worth of calls between Chris and the trolls took place, much of it never released. That's a good start there. Information was also omitted on the Quickie, which several trolls were members of, to paint a funnier picture of Chris, a side effect of which has created a skewed impression of him to fans. In the background calls, people would plant ideas in Chris's head and goad him into making videos. One such example is Twin Falling Towers, a 2009 video in which Chris invoked the 9/11 tragedy to diss Clyde Cash. The man in the pickle suit described how the trolls talked to Chris behind the scenes to get him to make the video as, "Be sure to mention that you think he's weak. Call him weak. Like some sort of big disaster, like a bridge collapsing. Ooh, or compare him to 9/11. That'll embarrass him." I hope that, if that really is the all it takes to actually get Chris to do stuff like that, again, I don't understand. Just why does that fit? Why does Chris again believe that's going to make him look any big or any clever in front of these guys? It's just that I just don't think that will ever happen. Other examples, because it didn't. Other examples include CWC calls out of 3 naive YouTubers, a set of videos in which Chris lambasted fan Sonichu is cool. Trolls had planted the idea in his head that she was secretly a troll. The Quixicle video in which he jammed his penis in the snow, and the Liquid Chris saga. Chris originally didn't want to react to Liquid, but the trolls forced his hand with artificial reasons. Trolls also exploited their knowledge of Chris's psychology to goad him to get angry in his videos. Chris usually reacts to a specific stimulus and has a short memory about those sorts of things, like a goldfish. So in any video where Chris is specifically trying to act like Johnny Bravo, that was almost always in response to a request by us no older than 24 hours. We would hype Chris up about how he's being called a pussy, and how if he doesn't make a video soon, he will lose the rights to Sonichu. Don't know again why Chris would believe somebody could just lose the rights to his own creation. The difference in style between videos produced by trolls and videos Chris records on his own initiative supports the point. Troll-produced videos tend to be short and succinct and feature Chris making a fool of himself. Chris recording on his own tends to bore his audience by rambling about his own interests, like toys or his fantasy world. The Truman Show. Chris's situation with the trolls has been compared to The Truman Show, a fictional film with a plot about the main character being unaware he is living in a reality TV show. In Chris's case, he has been manipulated by trolls for the sole purpose of making him into a circus act for people to laugh at. Similar to how actors would populate Truman's world, undercover trolls posed as Chris's friends for years. They controlled access to Chris's when one Sweetheart saga ended. Another potential sweetheart would contact Chris and would ask if his friends to vet him. The undercover trolls would confirm Chris that the sweetheart could be trusted, continuing the cycle of trolling. One such undercover troll is the woman behind Emily, Kim Wilson, and several other undisclosed personas. She lives locally to Chris and has met him in real life and gained his trust. Due to the severity of Chris's autism, he has facial blindness, leaving him unable to recognize her face whenever she would meet him in town. She then exploited this to trick Chris into believing he has multiple gal pals he can trust, when in reality all are played by a single undercover troll. Again, you would have thought like it would have been pretty easy to differentiate between faces, but that's just something that Chris again puts into his own mind. In the years post 2011, Chris has become increasingly vulnerable to the concept of creeping normality, often represented through the fable of the boiling frog, in which it was thought that by slowly heating a pan of water with a frog inside to a boil, the frog would not recognize it was in danger and leave, instead being cooked in the water alive, as opposed to immediately putting it in already hot water, in which case it would quickly jump back out. In a manner similar to the boiling frog, Chris is increasingly unable to recognize when he has been the target of manipulation, without being told outright by others that said manipulation has taken place. In 2018, when the idea guys manipulated Chris in ways darker than he had ever been attempted before, including systematically dismantling his imaginary world and its cast of characters, extorting vast sums of money from him, and threatening to report him to the FBI on false allegations of pedophilia, Chris was gaslit to the point of completely believing everything the idea guys said to him. You turn up the manipulation, you play off his fears that everything he's done will be completely cast asunder and he will be treated as a criminal for his behavior. And Chris would not have reacted so as such if there wasn't anything legitimate to these accusations put in front of him. While the efforts of the guard dogs minimally restored Chris's self-awareness to the point that he will level angry asides at the idea guys for their extortion in his videos, as demonstrated in those during the Soft Exile saga, Chris still wholeheartedly believes his modifications in the idea guys made to both the Solitude canon and real-world aspects of Chris's life, to the point that he appears from the outside to be no longer able to discern this new normal from that which came before it, thus being affected by creeping normality. Social engineering. Chris believes in crazy TV hacker stereotypes. That's why we always so easily told him we hacked into his phone or his email and blamed all our leaks on that. Our various troll girlfriends got away scot-free. I would say that's just hardly... Well, technically it is manipulation, but it was so easy to see past that this was complete BS. Why did Chris not... Whatever. Trolls exploited Chris's naivete nature to gain access to his accounts in order to leak emails or videos. After they had gained Chris's trust via a girlfriend persona, she would ask him for passwords and then blame any leaks that occurred on hacking. Chris would then change his password while simply handing the e-girlfriend the new one since he still trusted her. This practice came to a farcical head during the Teen Troon Squad saga, when the Squad and Guard Dog fractions engaged in a tug-of-war over Chris. The Squad would log into Chris's accounts and post information from Magi-chan about the dimensional merge, and the Guard Dogs, also having Chris's passwords, countered with their own information, trying to lead Chris away from thinking about the merge. The conflict causing confusion in Chris, who wanted to trust both sides. Chris in between the trolling. Without stimuli like the trolls goading him to get angry, Chris just kind of fell back into his natural state, being a man-child, playing with toys and wanting his sweetheart to take care of him. Since its discovery by the internet in 2007, there have been instances where actively fell to the point that Chris was temporarily without manipulation from trolls or enablers. Left to his own devices, Chris would drop off the internet and concentrate on the real world instead. We held him online if someone's not actively compelling Chris to do stupid stuff. Online, he slides off. An example of this can be seen in Chris's internet activity following his father's death.
Fuck Chris. Chris is a bitch. Fuck Chris.
At that point, the classic troll, Cable, voluntarily relinquished their control over Chris to follow him to grieve. As a direct result, Chris stopped recording wacky videos online, hence the abrupt end of the Calling Out saga. Overcoming his paranoia after years of troll manipulation, Chris began to socialize in the real world again, such as hanging out at the Impulse Gay Social Club and his Pokemon League friends.
No, he's a faggot. Chris is a bitch.
I'll say this much: Chris is a bitch. Let's see. Let's just check this one part out. Let's see. File history. Chris experiencing social anxiety. Christian Western Chandler. Typing or playing on his phone, he may be posting on forum and communicate with his kind. Continue to keep distancing against all of these people. He has his head down at the moment, going to wait until he leaves. Don't exactly know what that's meant to be about. Whatever. Chris experiencing anxiety and paranoia after the classic troll conspiracies released him on his Truman Show experience. I see. Manipulators at War, Sockness and Co. versus MKR and Co. And this was one of the most recent ones. During the latter half of 2019, tensions grew between Chris's enablers and manipulators came to head, especially as Jacob Sockness, one of Chris's principal manipulators at the time, was attempting to close his jaws firmly around Chris's imaginary world and even worm his way into a physical relationship. Sockness and his ilk came under fire from a separate group of enablers headed by MKR Nightv, another enabler vying to for Chris's attention, in a vain attempt to gain control over the situation. Sockness and his key allies attempted to manipulate Chris into believing that MKR and her allies were against him, and were enemies of the supposed prophecy Sockness claimed would take place if he were to meet Chris in person. As Sockness attempted to mastermind this plan, he even ended up getting into a conflict with Chris's themed YouTubers and observers such as Gibby and Dylan Thomas, attempting to silence their coverage of the growing shitstorm. Ultimately, it took Chris himself standing in the way of Sockness' efforts to put an end to his plan. With Chris being Chris, he believed that the enablers were his friends, and torn between who to believe, chose to rebuke Sockness for his attempt to turn his supposed friends against him, in a rare moment of clarity not commonly seen since the arrival of the Idea Guys the year previously. Notably, even though Chris stood between Sockness' manipulations and those he believed to be on his side, he failed to realize, and even the enablers acting out of some misguided sense of duty were manipulators themselves. Right, where were we? Chris's mother, and fortunately this is only the last part we have to go over. Barbara is often blamed for essentially being Chris's original enabler, in that she was the one who made him puerile and egocentric in the first place. She is also deemed to be the one responsible for Chris's constantly taking orders from random strangers. Without giving it a second thought, in the past, some of Barb's attempts at controlling Chris were nothing short of manipulation. Examples included threatening to lock Chris out of the house and leave him homeless if he dared travel further than a few miles out of town after the Ohio trip, as well as feigning cardiac arrest to bring Chris into line, terrifying him to the point of calling 911 on several occasions. Perhaps the most notable incident involving this sort of manipulation took place in 2011. Chris had planned to visit that year's MagFest convention, but realized that he didn't have enough money of his monthly tugboat left to afford a hotel room. So he instead opted to sleep in his car. After informing his parents of his plans, Bob gaslit him into backpedaling. Firstly, by claiming he could be at risk from a combination of criminals and cold temperatures. Then by again threatening to leave him homeless. And finally by implying that she would commit suicide if Chris went to the convention. A distraught Chris cancelled his plans and received only further guilt tripping and a small dose of Vidia as consolation. Trolls of the Patriots, the Miscreants, the Expedition of 4, Famous 4, Traitors. Jesus, that literally could be video after video of all these people right here. So that's technically the end of Chris and manipulation, but it's just, I would understand to a certain extent why exactly Chris would have such a difficult time trusting people if they felt they were just going to go behind his back. But then again, what could be said about Chris's gullibility? It could also be seriously brought into front because of his past behaviors and all the rest of them. However, something else has just literally occurred to my mind whilst going through all this. Just, it seems like really, really, to be honest, anybody looking into this for the very first time would say this was really, really petty and pathetic, and just, you're just like taking advantage of somebody at the end of the day, which is, I suppose, to an extent what these people were trying to do. They were trying to go one up on him by, doing all these terrible things. But then again, it just, Chris, like with many things that happen to Chris, he just doesn't seem to learn from any of these. He doesn't seem to realize that, well, one, he needs to recognize the signs. Like, if an offer seems too good to be true, that's because it probably is. And also that, well, just, I don't understand or get why. I mean, Barbara just like implying to commit suicide. That's just, what on earth can you say to something like that apart from that's just a damn horrible thing to do? Because supposing she actually went through with it, because that, I'm actually gonna just check something here, because I know that I think that's meant to be an enabling. I think that's meant to be something about enabling, possibly in one of these. I'll probably get into that, but again, that was just a lot to take in, and I'm gonna have to like take a while for me to like get over that. Probably I'll just finish with Cherries and just like take a while to relax about that, because that is just ridiculous. It's bad on the people who are doing this. Chris doesn't benefit in any which way because of all this, and it's just it really is sort of ridiculous at the end of the day. So I think we'll just leave it there. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this Chris Chan article of Chris and manipulation, and I hope to love you guys again in the next video. Take care, bye bye for now.